Good morning. Welcome to the garden on this Memorial Day weekend. We're glad you've joined us. I'm going to say a special word of thanks to Betty Ellison for filling in for me last week while I was away and getting a chance to celebrate friendship. So I hope you all appreciated her sharing of herself and have that opportunity to thank a friend and to include a friend as a part of our experience here on Sunday. Now, the idea for the message for this week actually came from something Tom Eric wrote in a column, one of his email things, a year or two ago. And Tom Eric is an author and a pastor, and actually he's a native of Indianapolis. He was born and raised here. And in this particular column that I read, he was thinking about if he were preaching on Memorial Day Sunday, what would he preach about? And he said, if I were anywhere near Indianapolis, I would talk about the Indianapolis 500. Well, I thought that was rather odd because, frankly, I don't think the Indianapolis 500, I don't think of it as a theological event of any dynamics. But he went on to kind of explain what he was thinking, and he said this: specifically, the brief but profound moment of deep spirituality that will occur just before noon, when cheers greet active duty military parading down the track to their special seats. The crowd sings along on the national anthem. The Roman Catholic Archbishop calls 400,000 people to silence for prayer, remembering the fallen and seeking peace. When a lone bugler plays taps, and everyone becomes a Hoosier for one day and sings "Back Home Again in Indiana." Now, I don't know if today all of his facts are right. I don't know how long it's been since he's actually been here or been to the race. I know they still sing the national anthem and that there's still a prayer, usually by the Archbishop, and that taps is played, and of course they have "Back Home Again, Indiana." But, there have been other changes and transitions that have taken place as well. But what surprised me most about what he said is he describes that as a moment of deep spirituality. Again, that isn't exactly the way I think about that, what's going on at the track right now as being a time of deep spirituality. So I decided I needed to think about this whole day a little bit more, because it does take place, the race does take place on a significant day in our history. And I began to reflect on what I could remember about Memorial Day when I was growing up. And, I grew up in Madison, Indiana, and as a little girl, I remember that we would have parades, and kids would decorate their bicycles with red, white, and blue streamers and that kind of thing. And I remember seeing a lot of flags. And then I know my family, and I think a lot of people we knew, would go to the cemeteries and put flowers on the graves of family members who had died. Now, my parents did not call this Memorial Day. They called it Decoration Day. And I guess that's because they decorated the graves to honor those who had died. And so I thought I need to know a little bit more about this. So I went to usmemorialday.org and discovered that when it was originally designated an official day, it was actually called Decoration Day. That's why it was. And it was a day set aside to honor and remember those in the military who had died defending our freedom, to try to make this world a little better place, and gave up their lives accordingly. And I discovered that what we call Memorial Day now actually started just right after the Civil War. In the South, women during the war actually put flowers on the graves of Confederate soldiers who died. But it was in 1868 that General John Logan actually named it a day, and on May 30th of 1868, it was actually officially observed with the putting of flowers on the graves of both Union and Confederate soldiers at Arlington National Cemetery. Apparently, there's been some debate about where this all actually started. And in '66, President Johnson said, okay, let's just name Waterloo, New York, and that's what happened. So this is called the birthplace of Memorial Day. Now, the date was May 30th. I remember that as a child because it was just one day. We didn't have this whole long time together, this 3-day weekend. But in '71, by an act of Congress, it was designated not just May 30th, but that it was the fourth Monday in May, making it a 3-day weekend. Now, some of those who served in the wars were really objecting to that, saying that it sort of diluted the whole meaning of Memorial Day. And in fact, maybe it has, so that even the official protocol of the flag for Memorial Day is not observed for the most part. And so it is a time, regardless of that, that we need to think about those who have given their lives in order for us to have a better life for ourselves. And there have been many of those who have died in the course of our history. There were over 600,000 during the Civil War, 116,000 plus in World War I, 405,400 in World War II, 58,000 in Vietnam. Now, there have been fewer in Iraq and in Afghanistan, but one life is one life too many. And so it is important that we remember those who gave their lives for us. The Bible passage we have this morning isn't talking about Memorial Day per se, but it's talking about honoring those who have gone before us. It's the writer of Hebrews who is saying this: "As for us, we have this large crowd of witnesses around us. So then let us rid ourselves of everything that gets in the way, and of the sin which holds on to us so tightly, and let us run with determination the race that lies before us." Now, the writer is trying to help us understand that there are those, what the writer calls this crowd of witnesses, those who've gone before us, who have left a legacy that can serve to inspire us, can help us deepen our dedication to the task at hand, and can deepen our love for one another and our love for country. Well, one of the things I did in thinking about today was to read some articles that were written by family members of loved ones who had died in combat. And one of those stories was written by a family from Chicago who had been attending the Memorial Day celebration in Chicago that happens on State Street with floats and bands taking place there. But what they actually went for was to be near the screen so that rolled the names of those from that area who had died. And they wanted to make sure that the son's name was up there. He died in Afghanistan in 2010. They wanted him to be recognized and remembered. And the same writer said that the speaker during that particular observance was the former Defense Secretary Leon Panetta. And Panetta shared with them how difficult it was to find the words to say to family members who'd lost loved ones. And he said this: "Your loved one loved you, loved your family, loved America, and gave his life for everything that he loved. That makes that warrior a hero." I also read something that a woman named Sally Quinn wrote, and she talked about knowing a number of people who had served in wars and who had served in the military. And when they survived and came home, she said they always pause on Memorial Day to remember and honor their fallen comrades, those who didn't make it home after the combats in which they were engaged. But she expands her thinking a little bit more. She wants to think about those African Americans, for example, who were so marginalized and discriminated against up until into the last century. And also to think about those who are gay, those who are women, who have been discriminated against and are now included in the military. And then she also talked about how she always takes time to think about the wounded veterans who've come back, and who are so in need of services from us and from our country to help them make a life for themselves again. And I was glad she mentioned the wounded warriors that we have, because I had just heard about a day that's been set aside that's called Alive Day. Maybe a story of someone named Tammy Duckworth could help us understand a little bit of what it's like. Tammy Duckworth was aboard a helicopter in Iraq in 2004 that was shot down, was hit by a rocket-propelled grenade. She was revived by a medic in the mangled mess of that helicopter. And 2 years after that, in 2006, she and that medic had a reunion. They met for the first time after that horrible experience that she had. It so happened that it was just 6 days after she'd been elected to a seat in the U.S. Congress. And they talked about Alive Day. They observed that together, those two. And she also includes those other 5 that were aboard that helicopter. And a Live Day is a great day among the military because it does celebrate the survival. It celebrates that they're getting together again, and it celebrates those who helped them survive, who helped them come here again. Now, because of all these reflections that I've shared with you, I have to tell you, I have a little different thought about Memorial Day, maybe than I've ever had. And it seems to me that it's important that we all pause on a day like today. We pause to reflect on the meaning of it. We pause to say a prayer of gratitude for those who served and died. And we pause to just be grateful for the blessings that are ours.